Hi, this is Andrew Powell, and joining me today is Joe Elliott, the founder and executive director of Catalyst Collective, a nonprofit situated around the Austin area. So, Joe, what could you tell me about what Catalyst does?
So Catalyst is a nonprofit organization. We are primarily serving at-risk students and their families, but students everywhere. And so what we do is we create opportunities for them to understand how they're uniquely made and why it matters. So that means we do a lot of things that promote students exploring and developing their gifts and passions. Anything from after-school programs in the middle schools and high schools to online courses and content, retreats, workshops. There's a lot of different ways to engage the next generation, and we try to leverage everything that is at our disposal to give them a guided path down exploring who they're uniquely meant to be and the impact they can make in the world.
So, you mentioned you help students, and it tends to be like a wide age distribution, right? So, like,
Yeah,
you
well,
have
so
yeah.
yeah, so starting in middle school, we don't really work with elementary students, but sixth grade on up to young adults, and then even beyond. Our organization helps business leaders and their teams and organizations better understand how they're designed as a unit and what they can do to make a greater impact collectively.
And you guys started Catalyst Collective back in 2011, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we're getting up there in age, close to 10 years old, so we've kind of figured out what we're doing by now.
I would hope so. um, so let me just ask, a big thing that's happening in the world right now is COVID-19. And I'm really wondering is how is that affecting Catalyst Collective?
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing, like, is we cannot meet on a local level face to face with students or families. However, we've had a large enough digital footprint that this situation was an easier one for us to pivot and navigate. So while we're not doing the programs in schools, we are inviting students and those who serve them to engage with us online. Our free classes are being hosted via Facebook Live, Instagram. Our workshops are all remote. We're doing a lot of one-on-one and group sessions via Zoom. So, there isn't a whole lot. Well, you lose some of the dynamic when you move digitally, but most of everything that we offered was digital in the first place. So it was an easy transition.
Can you elaborate on like what some of those classes would be?
Yeah, so one of our most popular classes is called our Purpose Project Workshop, which takes a group of people through the process of breaking down different pieces that make them unique, things like their natural talents, their gifts, their personality type, life experiences, passions, and then taking a step back and looking at how these pieces come together to form certain themes that point to their core strengths and the things that they could be doing in the world to make a greater impact. So a lot of times people in our workshops will experience that in pieces, in small groups, collectively, and now we're doing the presentation more remotely, but then helping them one-on-one kind of figure out the unique puzzle of their design.
Sorry, you cut out a little bit there because it's Zoom. Oh man. But I think it got it. Basically it got to design and then it was like, oh, I'm dead.
Yep.
Zoom. So I noticed that 2 days ago, Catalyst was hosting a Fortnite stream, right? And I was
Yeah.
curious if you could tell me a bit more about that.
Oh man, it's we just try anything and everything. So, students are loving Fortnite. We know they're playing video games. So it's more about how do we just jump in to what they're already doing and create a sense of community and fun and if for us, give them something to laugh at. But Aaron, one of our Hopewell site leads, that's one of our after hours programs. He can't be at the middle school, but he definitely can be online engaging with middle schoolers. And so that's definitely what he's doing. I took my hand and try to stab it around at Fortnite, but I'm terrible. Yeah. The classic NES, man, I could tear people up all day long.
Do you have any more ideas like that you're thinking about doing? Just because everyone's locked in right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's nothing that's off the table at the moment, and this is where we can kind of get creative and start innovating different things. So we're trying a cooking class, so some of our employees are doing that. We have free guitar lessons that are going live certain days of the week. In fact, this evening I'll be going live with taking my own daughter through the Purpose Project. So there's a lot of different ways where we're thinking if we were going to transfer a skill or get people interested in something, how can we go ahead and do that remotely? And what does that look like? And so we got a lot of other things that we're gonna try, but those are some of the ones that we just launched right off the bat because they were a little bit easier.
So this is an interesting question. I'm curious if you think there's anything positive, do you think, that's coming out of the COVID situation?
Yeah, I mean, we're all in hindsight, we'll all be able to look at this and probably reflect on some things. I mean, there's things organizationally that I hope we get out of it, and there's things personally I hope I get out of it. As an organization, I really, I really am hoping that this has slowed us down enough to get more into the creative, innovative headspace of where are we going and how do we really want to get there. So it's also given us an opportunity to say, hey, if this happens again, will it be as disruptive as it was this time around, or can we navigate our organization in a way to where we're prepared for this better the next time this may occur?
So you mentioned you have a daughter, which means you have kids. I'm just curious about, like, right now during the COVID situation, like, do kids go to school? I'm being serious.
Yeah. Well, so it's funny. I did a workshop for a college last night, a Purpose Project workshop, and I think every student, no matter where you are, elementary on up, is already halfway checked out. If you don't have to be at anything, I think it's our human nature not to learn unless we have to learn. So there were supposed to be 25 people in that workshop. I think 10 of them actually showed up. So I think that's kind of the mindset that's out there. I mean, students are doing the bare minimum they need to do that's required of them, and nothing more, unless you're in a household like mine, where we refuse to let our kids just lounge around all day long. So we've given our own curriculum and workload and job load for them to stay productive with.
Has your family been doing well during the COVID thing? Like, what I mean is groceries, toilet paper. In Austin, I think, didn't they pass something just recently that you have to wear a mask now in the
Yeah, I
Austin
heard that
area?
too. I'm right on the outskirts. I'm on the Cedar Park, Austin bubble. So, so I haven't been out yet, but yeah, it feels like every time I go out, there's more and more masks out there, more and more folks taking precaution. But we've been doing good so far.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, the other thing when it comes to COVID that we've been wrestling with is, the idea of creating a digital following before we have a physical one. And it's kind of been backwards, and especially if you come from the world of church, it's all about the physical following. And then, if you can't be there physically, maybe we can record the service so you can join us digitally. But now we're starting to flip that more in our heads and say, if there's not a reason for somebody to engage and be a part of our community digitally, why would they ever want to show up physically, right? And so we're starting to think through that through the lens of our young adult communities or teen communities, and say, well, what if we could do an excellent job at creating this digital authentic community that people want to be a part of? Because if we do that well, then anytime we do a guys night or an event or something where people can physically show up to, it just adds that much more flavor to it. So it's really thinking in reverse. And that's another thought or idea that's been sparked by, the pandemic. So Andrick, we got to give you a reason to join us digitally. What can we do
digitally
to get you involved in anything we might do remote?
Well, I thought it would be really cool. So I really like your guys' discussion stuff, like when we had Equinox or Austin Lit, and obviously none of those exist right now, but I thought it would be really interesting to do something like that, but like maybe do like a Zoom call like we're doing, but just have a bunch of people go into it and then just have discussion. I think that would be really interesting.
I love that idea. Zach actually, so Zach's our, associate director. So last night he did a Zoom call, which was really for his church. It was youth ministry with a bunch of different youth pastors and their students all on one call. So it's kind of like youth ministry remote, but he loved it. It went really, really well. So the same idea applies here. I think you're right on. If we were to create that digital discussion that got people engaged and talking, would that, can we make that work? Would people enjoy being a part of that? I don't know. But hey, if you're willing to try it with us, we're going to do it.
It would be something that I think would be interesting to try out. I would be really worried about like people just not putting input in, or just, well, I guess that's not necessarily a bad thing if they're just saying they're listening, because if they're there listening, at least you have somebody listening, I guess. But yeah, but I do think it would be an interesting idea. And it's interesting you brought that up when it comes to like churches, because man, like it's really interesting now, because all the churches, like either like, because especially the more old-fashioned churches, they're like, I don't know if they know what to do, because you don't want to have gatherings, right? So like, I mean, I've gotten emails from like some of the newer churches is like, hey, we're hosting this like virtual like service thing like this here, but like some of those older ones, they they don't know technology. It's kind of interesting thing to think about.
Yeah. Well, it's the same for any, church operates with a lot of the same parameters and principles of any business. I mean, you have to continually be willing to reinvent and innovate the methods in which you use or the products and services you promote in order to keep up with culture. And churches that don't adapt to the younger generations and what they're asking for, it's like any good product or brand, you'll die off at some point if you haven't been able to adjust accordingly.
I think you and I have been blessed in the fact that you work at an organization that's already kind of digital a lot of ways. So like it doesn't really affect you. And for me,
right,
from where I work, I basically work all digital. So like it doesn't really, I still have a job, which, what is it? I don't know if it's half, but like a lot of people are out of jobs right now or on furlough.
Yeah.
It's really insane.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah, I definitely think we're going to see a big economic shift in a lot of areas. People who didn't know how to leverage remote work are going to figure it out pretty quick.
especially all those companies that like, they had you go in, like, I know a friend that basically worked at a company that's a little bit more old fashioned, and then like they're like, hey, you have to work remote now, but they're like afraid to have people work remote because like
Mm-hmm.
they're not used to the digital landscape. So they're like, oh, we don't know if they're actually working or not. It's so funny. And it's like, man, you really don't understand digital work, do you? Or they don't trust their employees to actually do work,
Yeah.
which is, it just shows that they don't know anything about the digital world, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's a different way of even from a managing perspective of tracking people. So my wife works for the largest remote company on the planet. Nobody has a physical office, even the CEO. So everybody, all 1,200 employees are all remote scattered around the US. But same issue, like how do you know somebody is doing what they've been hired to do? And so they've had to come up with ways of really documenting their everything that they do as an organization, and document it well, to kind of create some sort of record as to what is and isn't getting done, you know?
Yeah. Well,
Mm.
I want to thank you, Joe, for being
Yeah.
part of this podcast. This has been Andrew Powell of Texas State Multimedia.